Everyone knows that letters and written languages are probably the worst thing to happen to anyone ever. They complicate the world and are, at the base level, the reason for every argument to ever take place. So let's turn this dimension on its head. Can you beat Elmo's number journey without killing anyone? Breathe it in. Inhale, outhale. Smell that? That's a high-quality puppet right there. Now, because of my inability to make important decisions while under duress, I ignored Elmo's cries for me to pick a difficulty setting so he could finally escape that wretched hellscape, calling itself a menu. Once the game had broken me down completely and understood everything that defines me as a person, it chose medium for my difficulty setting, and I was finally back on Sesame Street. The first thing that's worth mentioning is that just like everyone in the Mitten Squad Discord server, Elmo is not allowed to die. Despite the ample supply of balloon strings that could easily be turned into a noose, suicide is off limits. Before traveling with the wizard, I spent some time pestering Ernie with the prospect of friendship by walking back and forth in front of him, making him think I wanted to speak to him, only for me to keep on walking. I was voted the quietest guy in my high school class. I know how loud Ernie is screaming inside his head. It's kinda fun to be on this side of it. Also, and this is not relevant to the video in any way, I just want to make it known that I have a sealed copy of Elmo's Letter Adventure for the Nintendo 64, and you don't. The Count used his numeric powers to teleport me to the garden, which is basically the same fucking place as Big Bird's farm. I began garden time by trying desperately to escape. It didn't work, mainly because I got distracted by the dolphin trees. Then I thought I could free myself by failing the Vengeful One's test. In the second round, I heard the words from Countington's mouth and understood what he meant when he said bats. You can collect the number 5, or you can collect the bats. Why that's an option, I couldn't tell you. Maybe it's for people like me, who are especially slow. What I also don't know is how slow I truly am. I can't tell if I'm even moving at all, because I collected the bats and it counted against me. Logic tells us that the count probably meant you can collect the number 5 or groups of bats that consist of 5 bats. Seemed like a cruel trick to me. Count Von Count felt the same way and promptly dragged me into his castle to keep me from making a scene. Not that it would matter. His garden is so far removed from civilization that not even God can hear me. Fearing for my life, I sauntered through the castle in search of 5s. Another fun trick of this game is how poorly it runs. Modern computers just aren't built to handle this kind of a game. Normal computers use 1s and 0s as their base. This game has 5s and 7s and 9s and even a few 3s. That problem can only be solved by limiting the frame rate to ensure your mind doesn't wander too far from itself. Not long after entering the castle, I noticed things getting crazy. There were 2 kinds of bats, but only one are worth getting. This is the Skyrim with only a torch all over again. Back in the garden, I endured the slideshow, collected enough 5s to open a portal to Sovngarde, and met King Michael, who feasts on gravel and the silent screams of all inanimate objects. This was actually a fun little trip down memory lane, at least for the first 3 seconds. I played this game when I was just a strand of fabric. That's a Mitten joke. Feed the giant face enough balls to satisfy him, press literally any button, and you win. Honk the horn if you overfed the deity, and he'll expunge excess balls from his body via his ear. I gotta be honest, as a guy who knows a thing or two about single-digit numbers, this sucked compared to the spelling bee in Elmo's Letter Adventure. After you win, and you will, the character who abducted Elmo will verbally fillet Elmo, drowning the little red puppet in a thick tidal wave of praise. Then there's Ernie. Ernie likes me. I can tell. He wants to take me to his carnival to ride his rides. God noticed what was about to happen and crashed the game, saving me, and by extension you. The next time around, I chose easy as the difficulty. Medium was tough enough, and numbers don't get me hard like letters do. Shortly before asking the Cookie Monster his opinions about theoretical magic tricks, I decided to see if giving God the finger and speeding up time would make something fun happen. Like maybe, if I sped up the game enough, a black hole would pop into existence where Elmo is, and he'd be torn apart at the subatomic level. It probably did more harm than good, to be honest. A lot of this was written from memory, but a part of it wasn't, and I noticed the parts I forgot were also forgotten by my computer. The video file itself was corrupted beyond mortal comprehension. Nothing could save it. This is really unfortunate, because I can't show you how I broke the game and clipped through the Chocolate River. Playing the game again, I chose easy for my mission difficulty, distressed Ernie again, went to his garden again, and my eyes were as wide as Elmo's. I had to find the fucking 5s again. It was at this point I began to think that the other numbers were locked behind a paywall. I was gonna do this whole bit where I did a bunch of investigative research to find proof that the developers of this game were bought by EA. I was gonna tell you to visit the website of the developer for something shockingly vile, but I would have bought the domain and had it redirect to my channel just like I did for thedoalittlemovie.com. But the domain name was taken, so I old yellered that idea. By this point, I'm probably at the bumper cars, which, if I'm being honest, give the Need for Speed franchise a run for its money. The other thing that stood out to me was Elmo's hands on the side of the car. The pedals are no doubt cuddling with his feet, but how does he change directions? My only conclusion was that he must have some fifth appendage hidden just out of sight that he only pulls out for special occasions. That can't be the case. We all know Elmo doesn't pull out. Back at the sacrifice chamber, I appeased the gods with a bunch of balls, returned to Sesame Street, and activated New Game Plus, allowing me to finally take on the ultimate number challenge, in the form of Cookie Monster's sadistic mating rituals. This was disappointing. Skateboarding through a chocolate river is cool and all, but it's not space. With all the 2s in the world, I moved on to skiing down Sugar Mountain for more numbers, and eventually going back to dance for the amusement of the clown god. You're probably thinking the same thing I was when I saw this. Doctor Strange. If I can't lose, he can't win. I stood there for literal hours, waiting for something to happen, and nothing ever did. I performed his task in the name of science and went back to Sesame Street to kill myself. Elmo knew what I had planned for us both. He used my own move against me. He wouldn't let me take us into the street to get hit by a car. I even checked to make sure that my controls weren't messed up after speeding up the game. I have no explanation for this. I don't think anyone ever will, but it was a sign that I'd come to the end of my number journey. Wait, one last thing before I end this video. Look at this shit. Look at how good the PlayStation version of this game looks. I don't want to start a revolution, but if you could go ahead and tweet at Elmo until we get to the bottom of this fucking travesty, I'd appreciate it. If you enjoyed the video or learned anything, leave a like. Leave a dislike if you didn't enjoy the video or didn't learn anything. Thanks to the Champion Tier supporters as well as other channel members for making videos like this one possible. Join the Mitten Squad Discord server through a link in the video description. Follow me on Twitter at Mitten Squad. My name is Paul of Mitten Squad. Have a wonderful day.